There are places on Earth that should never be found. Deep in the unforgiving Nevada desert, where the relentless sun scorches the parched earth and an eerie silence stretches across endless miles of barren rock, there exists a cave that defies all scientific explanation. A cave that made a man's entire body vibrate with an unknown, otherworldly frequency. A cave that whispered to him like a siren song from the shadowy depths of the earth itself, pulling at his very soul, until the day it finally claimed him, leaving behind only questions and shadows. His name was Kenny Veach, 47 years old, an experienced desert explorer who had conquered the most remote and perilous corners of the Mojave Wilderness, facing down sandstorms, venomous creatures, and the crushing isolation of the void. But there was something profoundly unnatural about this particular cave, something that didn't belong in our rational world, something that pulsed with frequencies beyond human comprehension, as if the earth itself was alive and hungry. Kenny felt it the moment he approached, a resonance that penetrated his bones, his soul, his very essence, making his blood hum with an impossible energy. He should have walked away that first day, turning his back on the darkness that beckoned. He should have heeded the primal fear that clawed at his instincts, screaming for him to run from the unknown. Instead, he became obsessed, drawn back again and again like a moth to a flame that promised both revelation and destruction. And in the Nevada desert, where the line between reality and nightmare blurs under the merciless sun, obsession is nothing less than a death sentence. This is the story of the M Cave and the man who couldn't escape its supernatural pull. A story that begins with innocent curiosity and spirals into one of the most disturbing and unexplained disappearances in modern times. If you're ready to dive into the darkest mysteries of the underground world, where ancient forces still lurk in the shadows of forgotten places, waiting to claim the unwary, subscribe now. Welcome to Cave Shadows. Kenny Veach wasn't some weekend warrior chasing fleeting thrills in the wilderness. He was a true veteran of the desert's harsh embrace. This was a man forged by decades of punishing expeditions, someone who had learned to read the lethal beauty of Nevada's most remote territories like an open book. At 47, Kenny had devoted more than half his life to exploring the endless expanses of the Mojave Desert, the vast Great Basin, and the enigmatic mountains that rise like ancient guardians from the cracked desert floor, their peaks hiding secrets older than time. While most people shunned the scorching temperatures that could climb to 120 degrees Fahrenheit and the treacherous terrain pockmarked with hidden mine shafts and sudden drop-offs, Kenny not only survived but thrived in this brutal environment. He knew every twisting trail that snaked through the rocky canyons, where loose gravel could send even the sure-footed tumbling. Every elusive seasonal water source that could spell the difference between survival and a slow, agonizing death from dehydration. Every subtle shift in wind patterns that might herald an approaching sandstorm, capable of erasing footprints and swallowing the unprepared whole. Kenny was methodical to a fault, his preparations bordering on obsession. He always carried state-of-the-art GPS devices, backup navigation tools, ample water supplies for extended emergencies, a comprehensive first aid kit stocked for every conceivable injury, emergency shelter materials, and reliable communication equipment, even in areas where signals faded to nothing. His family and close friends consistently described him as cautious, deeply responsible, and always calculating, a man who would never tempt fate with unnecessary risks in an environment that offered no second chances to the foolhardy. But beneath this careful exterior burned something that distinguished Kenny from mere casual hikers. An insatiable, almost spiritual curiosity about the unknown wonders hidden in the Earth's folds. He meticulously documented his discoveries in engaging YouTube videos, sharing breathtaking landscapes that few eyes would ever behold, forgotten historical mining sites whispering tales of boom and bust, abandoned settlements reclaimed by the sand, and geological formations that chronicled millions of years of the planet's turbulent history. Kenny's videos weren't simple travel logs. They were passionate educational journeys into the heart of America's hidden wilderness, inspiring viewers to appreciate the raw power of nature. For Kenny, the desert wasn't just a hobby or a temporary escape from urban life. It was his profound passion, his spiritual refuge, his true second home where he felt most vitally alive, connected to something greater than himself. He understood the desert's deadly moods intimately, the sudden flash floods that could roar through dry washes without warning, transforming them into raging torrents. The rattlesnakes coiled in the shadows, ready to strike with lethal precision, the yawning mine shafts that could swallow a person whole, their depths echoing with eternal silence. Kenny respected these dangers because he had witnessed their devastating power up close and personal. He had rescued fellow hikers who had underestimated the desert's cruelty, pulling them from the brink of death. He had stumbled upon the bleached remains of those who hadn't been so fortunate, their stories lost to the wind-swept sands. So when Kenny Veach publicly declared that something in this familiar desert had left him genuinely terrified, that something had caused his entire body to vibrate with an inexplicable, unnatural frequency, seasoned explorers across the country sat up and took notice. Because if there was anyone supremely qualified to distinguish between ordinary natural phenomena and something truly anomalous, something that challenged our fundamental understanding of the natural world, it was Kenny Veach. And it was precisely this wealth of experience and unshakable credibility that made his discovery of the M Cave so profoundly and chillingly disturbing. It was early autumn 2014 when Kenny decided to explore a particularly remote section of the Sheep Range, approximately 30 miles north of Las Vegas. Corregido para alinear con timeline real. This wasn't the polished paths of tourist attractions. Far from it. This was raw, uncompromising wilderness where the nearest paved road lay hours away, and cell phone signals died in the vast emptiness, leaving explorers utterly alone with the elements. Kenny had pored over detailed topographic maps for weeks, pinpointing intriguing geological formations and potential cave systems that had eluded him during his decades of methodical exploration. The area carried a notorious reputation among local hikers, not merely for its extreme isolation, but for its shadowed history that whispered of danger. The region was littered with abandoned military mine shafts, some rumored to have been used for covert chemical weapons disposal during the tense years of the Cold War, their depths still potentially toxic. It served as a known dumping ground for everything from industrial waste to, as local law enforcement quietly acknowledged, the occasional murder victim whose body would never surface. Drug traffickers and addicts often sought refuge in the area's concealed caves and forgotten shafts, turning the landscape into a haven for illicit activities. In every conceivable way, it was a place where people simply disappeared, their fates swallowed by the indifferent earth. But Kenny had ventured into such dangerous territories countless times before. He had survived close calls with rattlesnakes, navigated through blinding flash floods, overcome critical equipment failures, and endured extreme weather that would break lesser men. The day was brutally hot, a classic Nevada autumn scorcher, but Kenny was well acclimated to these punishing conditions, his body tuned to the desert's rhythm. He had been hiking for roughly 4 hours, meticulously following GPS coordinates derived from high-resolution satellite imagery, when he spotted something unusual etched into the face of a towering limestone cliff. At first glance, it seemed like just another ordinary cave entrance, unremarkable in the grand scheme of desert geology, nothing to set it apart from the hundreds of similar openings carved by eons of relentless wind and sporadic water erosion. Kenny approached to investigate further, as was his standard procedure with the countless caves he had explored throughout his career. But when he closed to within approximately 10 meters of the entrance, something utterly extraordinary and terrifying occurred. His body began to vibrate. This wasn't a surface-level tremor, like the distant rumble of heavy machinery or the subtle shake of minor seismic activity. This was something profoundly more disturbing, intimate, and alien. It felt as if his very cellular structure, his bones, his nervous system, his entire essence, was resonating in harmony with some invisible, unknown frequency emanating from the cave's maw. The sensation was so overwhelmingly intense and completely unexpected that Kenny halted immediately, his finely honed explorer's instincts blaring alarms that something was fundamentally, dangerously wrong. He would later describe the experience in vivid detail, as if his entire body had transformed into a massive tuning fork, struck by an invisible force that reverberated through every fiber of his being. Kenny, ever the practical man and natural skeptic, immediately sought logical explanations before entertaining anything more exotic. His mind raced through possibilities. Perhaps underground geological activity generating subsonic waves, natural gas emissions creating hallucinatory effects, electromagnetic fields leaking from nearby military installations, or even unusual mineral deposits capable of producing bioelectromagnetic anomalies. But as he cautiously inched closer to the cave entrance, the vibration intensified exponentially, growing from a subtle hum to an all-consuming force that threatened to shake him apart. The nearer he drew, the more violent and invasive the resonance became, as if the cave itself was pushing back against his intrusion. And when he retreated, stepping backward from the entrance, the vibration gradually subsided, fading away completely at the same 10-meter threshold. Kenny repeated this test multiple times, approaching and withdrawing, carefully noting the exact distances where the effect initiated and amplified. The pattern proved eerily consistent, defying any natural phenomenon within his extensive knowledge of desert geology and physics. For the first time in decades of bold desert exploration, Kenny Veach experienced something he had rarely encountered in the wilderness: genuine, bone-deep, primal terror that chilled him to his core. His survival instincts, sharpened by years of life-or-death decisions, screamed at him to flee this unnatural place immediately and never return. He chose not to enter the cave that fateful day. Instead, he meticulously recorded the precise GPS coordinates and made his way back to his vehicle, his mind swirling with unanswerable questions that would soon consume him. But the experience had already sunk its hooks deep into his psyche, refusing to let go, setting in motion a chain of events that would lead to tragedy. Kenny couldn't escape the haunting memory of that otherworldly vibration, no matter how hard he tried. Weeks turned into restless months, but the experience lingered like a persistent echo in the caverns of his mind, refusing to fade into oblivion. Every time he closed his eyes, whether in the quiet of his home or under the vast desert stars, he could still feel that impossible resonance coursing through his veins, a phantom sensation that defied rational explanation. As an experienced explorer who had always prided himself on documenting and sharing his discoveries with the world, Kenny knew deep down that he needed to reveal what he had encountered, if only to make sense of it himself. In June 2014, while browsing YouTube late one night, Kenny stumbled upon a video titled "Son of an Area 51 Technician." The content featured an individual discussing classified information allegedly shared by their father about secret government operations in the Nevada desert. Something in the video's themes of hidden truths and unexplained phenomena resonated with Kenny's recent experience, prompting him to share his own mysterious encounter. He posted a detailed comment that would irrevocably change the course of his life. "Ain't nothing. I'm a long-distance hiker. One time during one of my hikes out by Nellis Air Force Base, I found a hidden cave. The entrance to the cave was shaped like a perfect capital M. I always enter every cave I find, but as I began to enter this particular cave, my whole body began to vibrate. The closer I got to the cave entrance, the worse the vibrating became. Suddenly I became very scared and hightailed it out of there. That was one of the strangest things that ever happened to me." Kenny described his experience with the precision of a scientist, detailing the physical sensations and his emotional response. He mentioned the approximate coordinates within the vast Desert National Wildlife Refuge, a protected area known for its military restrictions and unexplained phenomena. He elaborated on the mysterious body vibration with the methodical approach of someone accustomed to cataloging unusual discoveries for his YouTube audience. He explained his uncharacteristic decision not to enter the cave, despite his lifelong habit of exploring every opening he encountered. In a move that would prove fateful, Kenny also challenged other explorers to seek out this enigmatic cave themselves. He dubbed it the M Cave, based on the distinctive entrance shape that perfectly mimicked a capital letter M, as if carved by deliberate, unnatural design. He provided just enough directional detail for determined adventurers to potentially locate the site, igniting a spark of curiosity in the online community. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming, exploding across social media and hiking forums. Some veteran hikers were captivated by Kenny's vivid, credible account, praising his bravery in sharing such a bizarre experience. Others voiced healthy skepticism, pondering if environmental factors could explain the phenomenon. Scientifically inclined commenters dove into theories, perhaps unusual geological electromagnetic fields generated by mineral deposits, subsonic frequencies from underground water flows, natural gas emissions inducing physical hallucinations, or even classified military technology leaking from nearby bases. But what truly fueled the firestorm was a vocal contingent of skeptics who didn't merely doubt Kenny's story. They attacked his character. These detractors didn't just question the account. They directly challenged his integrity as an explorer. They claimed the entire tale was fabricated, insisting no cave could produce such effects, and accused Kenny of concocting elaborate fiction for attention. Some escalated to outright mockery, labeling him a fraud. "If this cave really exists," they taunted in comments, "prove it. Go back there and film every second of it. You're making this up for YouTube views and cheap fame," others sneered. "This is complete nonsense. Caves don't make bodies vibrate. You're delusional." For a man who had dedicated decades to building an unimpeachable reputation as a trustworthy, seasoned explorer, these attacks cut deep, striking at the core of his identity. Kenny knew his standing within the tight-knit hiking and exploration community was now at stake. Once lost, credibility in this world was nearly impossible to reclaim. His reputation had become everything to him, a badge earned through years of genuine discoveries and shared knowledge. Compounding this public humiliation, Kenny was grappling with profound personal struggles that few knew about. Financial woes had accumulated from a series of failed entrepreneurial ventures, including quirky inventions like a glow-in-the-dark polar bear toy and an innovative toilet paper holder design. These pursuits had drained most of his retirement savings, leaving him in precarious economic straits. The toxic combination of relentless public skepticism and mounting personal desperation created a perfect storm of psychological pressure. Kenny became utterly determined to prove the cave's existence, no matter the cost. He would return to that remote, hazardous location, armed with proof. He would document every detail irrefutably. He would silence the doubters and restore his tarnished honor. Little did he know, this burning need for vindication would ultimately cost him everything he held dear. Kenny's burning determination to validate the cave's existence consumed him entirely, transforming from a simple quest into a dangerous fixation. In the months following his viral comment, he mounted multiple expeditions back to the remote sheep range, each journey growing more frantic and exhaustive than the last. But a devastating reality soon emerged that shattered Kenny's confidence to its foundation. Despite possessing precise GPS coordinates, despite his intimate knowledge of the terrain gained from years of exploration, despite his proven track record of navigation, Kenny could not locate the cave again. The cave had apparently vanished from the face of the earth, as if it had never been there. Expedition after grueling expedition, Kenny systematically combed every square mile of the Nevada mountains where logic dictated the cave must reside. He scrutinized every rock formation with desperate precision, climbing precarious ledges to peer into shadows. He probed every potential shadow that might conceal a cave entrance, no matter how inaccessible. He delved into every conceivable opening, however narrow or improbable, his flashlight piercing the darkness in vain. But nothing emerged. The enigmatic cave with its distinctive M-shaped entrance had disappeared as thoroughly as if it had been a mirage, or something far more sinister, a temporary manifestation that the mountain had reclaimed. It was as if the very earth had conspired to swallow the supernatural opening, erasing its existence from physical reality. This inexplicable absence began to erode Kenny's sense of self, leading him to question his own mental stability in moments of quiet despair. Had he fabricated the entire encounter in some heat-induced delusion? Was the body vibration merely a transient medical anomaly that his mind had amplified into something extraordinary? But Kenny knew, deep in his core, that the memory was too crystalline, too sensorially specific, too grounded in physical reality to be dismissed as hallucination. He could still feel that unearthly resonance echoing in his bones during sleepless nights. Kenny's mounting frustration escalated with each fruitless expedition, his disappointment turning to quiet rage. Meanwhile, the online commentary grew increasingly vicious and unrelenting. "Kenny is obviously lying through his teeth," sneered some users in forum threads. "He fabricated this whole ridiculous story for attention and YouTube subscribers," claimed others, their words like daggers. "This guy is clearly delusional. The cave never existed except in his imagination. He's making a complete fool of himself and wasting everyone's time with this nonsense." Each cutting remark only fueled his burning determination, pushing him deeper into isolation. Kenny expanded his search radius dramatically beyond the original coordinates, venturing into uncharted territories. He traversed canyons he had never explored in his decades of hiking, their walls echoing with his solitary footsteps. He followed forgotten mining trails overgrown with decades of desert scrub, paths unused since the gold rush era. He rappelled into remote ravines requiring specialized climbing gear, places where one wrong move meant certain death. Friends and family began voicing grave concerns about Kenny's deteriorating obsession, watching as it consumed his every waking moment. He was devoting every weekend, and increasingly weekdays, to solitary desert searches, often disappearing for days without adequate preparation. Kenny's girlfriend, Sherian Pilgrim, later disclosed that he had been battling severe depression for years, a condition exacerbated by the relentless public ridicule. The repeated failures to locate the cave were systematically dismantling his self-confidence and the respected reputation he had built within the hiking community he cherished. But for Kenny, surrendering the search was inconceivable. It would mean admitting defeat not just to the skeptics, but to himself. His very identity as a credible explorer hung in the balance of finding the M Cave. His integrity had been publicly assailed, his lifetime of expertise casually dismissed by anonymous internet critics. The escalating financial pressures from his unsuccessful business ventures added yet another layer of urgent desperation to his quest. Kenny desperately needed this discovery to salvage his reputation and potentially generate income through detailed documentation and media exposure. Then, in the crisp fall of 2014, Kenny reached a pivotal decision that would alter everything and precipitate tragedy. He proclaimed to his online followers that he would undertake one final, all-encompassing expedition, one last exhaustive search for the mysterious cave that induced human bodies to vibrate with enigmatic frequencies. This time, he vowed, he would not return empty-handed. He would secure irrefutable answers or perish in the attempt. This time, he would carry extra protection, his trusted 9mm handgun, ostensibly for wildlife, but perhaps for something more ominous. This time, he would stake everything on proving the M Cave's reality. Unbeknownst to him, Kenny was effectively scripting his own tragic demise. November 10th, 2014, dawned like countless other expedition days for Kenny Veach, yet carried an undercurrent of irrevocable finality. He rose before the first light, adhering to his long-standing routine, before plunging into the Nevada wilderness's unforgiving embrace. But this particular morning weighed heavy with unspoken gravity. Kenny couldn't shake the sense that this venture marked a point of no return. This would be his ultimate attempt to unearth the M Cave's secrets. Success would vindicate his tarnished reputation. Failure would cement his status as a discredited fantasist in the eyes of the world. Kenny assembled his gear with the painstaking meticulousness that had preserved his life through decades of hazardous journeys. Advanced GPS devices equipped with fresh batteries and redundant power sources for foolproof navigation. Intricate topographic maps annotated with every documented cave and mine shaft in the target zone. Ample water rations for a protracted day hike, supplemented by emergency reserves to combat the desert's dehydrating fury. A comprehensive first aid kit, complete with snakebite anti-venom and trauma supplies. Portable emergency shelter and essential survival tools for unexpected overnights. Communication devices, despite the knowledge that cellular signals would vanish in his intended remote sector. And crucially, his 9mm handgun, a standard companion for remote treks, where encounters with mountain lions, feral animals, or venomous serpents were genuine threats. Yet on this day, the firearm's presence felt laden with additional unspoken significance. Later speculation would question whether Kenny carried it solely for protection, or if darker intentions lurked beneath. Kenny briefed his girlfriend Sherian Pilgrim on his general itinerary, maintaining his customary pre-expedition protocol. However, departing from his typical thorough disclosures, this discussion remained unusually ambiguous. He spoke of probing the rugged mountainous terrain north of Las Vegas, within the expansive Desert National Wildlife Refuge. He projected a return before dusk, consistent with his standard day hike parameters. Yet he omitted specific coordinates or precise route details, a notable deviation for someone renowned for meticulous planning. Around 8:09 a.m., Kenny loaded his weathered truck and embarked on what would prove to be his terminal voyage. Surveillance footage from a modest gas station along Corn Creek Road captured the final verified sighting of Kenny in life. The grainy images depict him refueling his vehicle, projecting an aura of calm determination, merely another seasoned hiker stealing for a desert sojourn. Kenny appeared resolute yet composed, fixated on his objective without evident markers of psychological turmoil or self-destructive intent. Throughout the morning, Kenny dispatched several concise text messages to friends and family, upholding his safety routine. These communications were mundane and reassuring. Location updates, weather observations, standard check-ins characteristic of his solo ventures. Kenny noted investigating a promising sector rich with intriguing geological features. He mentioned uncovering compelling rock structures meriting intimate examination. But as the day advanced and the Nevada sun ascended to its zenith of blistering intensity, Kenny's messages dwindled in frequency. His established rhythm of consistent updates began to falter inexplicably. Loved ones would later emphasize how this communication lapse deviated sharply from Kenny's ingrained safety-conscious nature. The ultimate message, transmitted around 2 p.m. to an intimate confidant: "Found something, going to investigate closer." This enigmatic dispatch would evolve into one of the most scrutinized fragments of evidence in Kenny's vanishing. Following this cryptic transmission, Kenny Veach's communications ceased abruptly and entirely. No supplementary texts emerged. No voice calls were attempted. No distress beacons activated. As the sun commenced its descent toward the serrated Nevada horizon, painting the rocks in hues of blood and gold, Kenny Veach neglected to return to his parked vehicle. His rigorously adhered schedule lay in tatters. When nocturnal shadows fully claimed the desert and Kenny remained incommunicado, his family recognized the situation's dire gravity. At precisely 10:00 p.m., 12 hours post-departure, Kenny Veach was formally declared missing. A veteran explorer, intimately familiar with every perilous contour and concealed hazard of the region, had evaporated into the Nevada wilderness's boundless void. The quest to locate Kenny Veach was poised to commence. Yet for Kenny, his all-consuming pursuit of the elusive M Cave had culminated in its definitive, sorrowful resolution. When Kenny failed to materialize on the evening of November 10th, his girlfriend Sherian Pilgrim immediately sensed catastrophe, her intuition honed by years of anxious waits during his expeditions. Throughout their relationship, Kenny had never violated his ironclad communication protocols. He invariably checked in at predetermined intervals. He never deviated from estimated returns without prior notification. Kenny's legendary reliability and emphasis on safety were cornerstones of his character, reassuring all who knew him. The ensuing morning, Sherian alerted the Clark County Sheriff's Department, officially reporting Kenny as missing. Within mere hours, an extensive search and rescue initiative mobilized. Nevada's specialized search and rescue units deployed expert desert recovery teams. These professionals excelled in locating vanished individuals amid North America's most formidable landscapes. Helicopter contingents initiated comprehensive aerial reconnaissance of the northern Las Vegas mountainous zones, surveying hundreds of square miles of jagged wilderness. Terrestrial search parties systematically traversed canyons, gorges, and isolated trails inaccessible to vehicles. Canine units trained in human scent detection dispersed across the terrain. Operations centered initially on Kenny's vehicle's last GPS fix, discovered stationed near Corn Creek Road. For 3 grueling days, scores of searchers braved the hostile environment. They plumbed forsaken mine shafts, some plunging hundreds of feet into subterranean darkness. They inspected ephemeral water sources, where a wounded or parched trekker might seek sanctuary. They examined every cave mouth, rock ledge, and potential refuge in the immense wilds. On November 22nd, 12 days following Kenny's vanishing, searchers unearthed a pivotal yet unsettling clue. Kenny's cellular phone was discovered abandoned adjacent to an antiquated mine shaft, roughly 2 miles from his truck's position. The device appeared intact without visible damage, yet partially operational, contradicting initial reports of cracking. Corregido para fidelidade factual. This locale implied Kenny had indeed penetrated his intended M Cave search vicinity. However, the phone's circumstances spawned more enigmas than resolutions. No indications of conflict marked the site. No traces of violence or faunal assault. No clues to the phone's abandonment. It seemed Kenny had merely discarded the device before evaporating. More perplexingly, forensic analysis revealed glaring inconsistencies in the message logs. The terminal text received by friends, "Found something, going to investigate closer," absent from the device's sent history. This technical paradox defied explanation. Had the message originated from another apparatus? Had an interloper dispatched it using Kenny's phone prior to desertion? This impossibility infused the case with an aura of the uncanny. Search contingents broadened their scope to encompass increasingly isolated sectors. They descended into profound mine shafts via rappelling gear. They employed specialized apparatus to probe submerged portions of transient pools. They traversed miles of punishing rocky expanse that tested even veteran climbers. Despite exhaustive endeavors, no further vestiges of Kenny Veach materialized. No garments or gear, no imprints or disrupted flora, no sanguine evidence or physical remnants. It was as though Kenny had been utterly expunged from reality. Following over a week of rigorous searching engaging numerous volunteers and expert rescuers, officials formally halted operations. Kenny Veach received classification as missing under enigmatic, inexplicable conditions. His dossier joined the expanding catalog of individuals evaporated sans trace in America's wilds. Yet Kenny's kin rejected the search's termination. Sherian orchestrated private reconnaissance groups with seasoned hikers and volunteers. She engaged specialized missing persons investigators. She proffered substantial bounties for leads to Kenny's whereabouts. Local trekking collectives persisted in unofficial quests for months. But the Nevada desert, with its myriad concealed caverns, shafts, and secluded gorges, had appropriated another soul. Kenny Veach, the adept explorer intimate with the region's every perilous nook, had dissolved as thoroughly as a specter, and the enigmatic M cave precipitating this tragedy remained undiscovered. Over a decade has elapsed since Kenny Veach's evaporation into the Nevada wilds, yet his fate's enigma persists, fueling fervent conjecture and scrutiny. Myriad theories have surfaced, spanning prosaic mishaps to extraordinary paranormal occurrences, none wholly resolving the case's core riddles. The primary, most pragmatic theory posits a calamitous wilderness incident. Kenny might have plummeted fatally into one of the area's concealed mine shafts, some delving hundreds of feet subterranean. A rattlesnake's venomous strike in isolation could have felled him, body eternally obscured. Dehydration and thermal prostration perpetually menace Nevada's desert, capable of vanquishing even veterans via judgmental lapses or gear malfunctions. The austere milieu is merciless, and Kenny's expertise notwithstanding, a fleeting incaution could prove lethal. Yet this orthodox interpretation neglects several disquieting facets. Why the phone's abandonment sans struggle indicators? How to reconcile the cryptic message discrepancy? Why did safety-obsessed Kenny apparently forego standard emergency provisions? A secondary theory implicates felonious endeavors in the desolate zone. Kenny's disappearance locale, notorious for narcotics operations, armaments trafficking, and historical corpse disposals. He might have unwittingly observed illicit activities, silenced to safeguard enterprises. This elucidates the abrupt vanishing and evidence paucity. Remote criminal syndicates possess means to ensure witnesses' permanent erasure. The phone could have been deliberately positioned to confound probes. A third, more harrowing theory proposes Kenny engineered his own exodus. Sherian disclosed Kenny's protracted severe depression intensified pre-disappearance. He reportedly voiced suicidal ideations, stating any self-termination would render him unfindable. Fiscal strains from abortive ventures had exhausted his reserves, engendering desperation. Public derision over the M Cave narrative had ravaged his esteem and hiking community standing. Sherian observed Kenny's omission of his video camera on this ultimate trek, implying documentation disinterest. Contrasting prior excursions, the desert's innumerable shafts and caverns offered ideal self-erasure venues. Yet a fourth theory, one Kenny perhaps dreaded voracious, posits the M Cave's authentic supernaturality, claiming him upon rediscovery. Adherents cite inexplicable elements. The vibration lacks cave exploration precedent. The cave's apparent manifestation dematerialization defies physics. Message inconsistencies suggest anomalous interference. Theorists propose dimensional portals, gateways transcending space-time. Others posit electromagnetic fields altering consciousness are a reality. Most chilling, a predatory entity luring explorers to doom. Scores of hikers and teams have sought the M Cave post-disappearance. Lavishly equipped ventures with GPS, radar, and detection gear scoured systematically. All fruitless. No matching cave found. As if the M Cave manifested solely for Kenny, luring then vanishing post-acquisition. Contemporary tech, satellites, drones, mapped all formations. No M entrance identified. Today, Kenny's tale endures as poignant admonition of persisting enigmas. Earth harbors locales perhaps best unexplored, phenomena warranting avoidance, caves potentially realms beyond physical comprehension. Kenny's truth may elude forever, yet his narrative inspires, terrifies wilderness venturers. Perhaps in vanishing, Kenny attained redemption, eternal union with beloved desert mysteries, his legacy a cautionary beacon against obsession's perils, reminding us nature's secrets sometimes demand respectful distance. What fate befell Kenny that November 2014 day? Tragic mishap in merciless wilds, deliberate self-erasure amid strife, criminal liaison in peril-fraught region, or supernatural M-cave ensnaring him in incomprehensible dimensions? The enigma persists, lurking in desert shadows, awaiting a bold truth seeker. Share your theory below. For more chilling cavern mysteries worldwide, subscribe to Cave Shadows. In Earth's depths, secrets eternally await revelation. Until next tale.